Dean here. I am sorry about that. I had some, computer issues. Yay. Okay. I'm not sure if this will work right. We'll see. Let's see um, if the chat comes up or anything. I'm not sure. We'll see. Missing features. Live streaming. Events. Live now. Let's see if this is coming. Oh, look at that. It is. It's not showing in my computer at all, or my tablet, but it's showing on my computer there, or my phone. So that's alright. Computer at all, or my tablet. What I will do here, computer there, or my phone. So that's alright. Is mute this end. So, I am going to be playing Dante's Inferno, Dante's Divine Comedy, Inferno, chapter, 22 to 26? Or 27 to 34. Apparently I did not update the text. So, Dante's Inferno, 27 to 34. So it's going to be a little bit longer today than the other days. It takes, I don't know, usually each one is 7 to 8 minutes. So, but we have a couple of extra today because it's so long, and it was the last two last two chapters in the Inferno. So I'm just going to play through those. I'm working on the doll for my friend. This is I got two hands done. I got one leg done, and I'm just finishing up this last leg. What I'm going to be doing is using the scrap yarn. Let's see if you can see that. There we go. I use a empty coffee thingy to store my yarn in. It's one of those big ones you get at Costco or wherever to store my scrap ends in. So she's going to end up getting oh, I just realized. Here we go. Coffee, yay! So she's just going to get one that uses a scrap yarn and ends. So, but it works well as stuffing, especially if it's not going to be something that it's going to be using. It's not going to have hardware, not like something a child would be pulling at and stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's just I guess get on with the show. So let's see here. Dante's Inferno. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it's not doing it. It says it's invalid. Why is it doing that? Of course. Let's see here. Data, audiobooks. LibriVox. This is a LibriVox. Oh, I renamed the I know what I did. I renamed the LibriVox folder by mistake after I created the playlist. So let's just put that back. There we go.
Section 27 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 27. The Eighth Circle, Fraud. The Eighth Trench, Fraudulent Counselors.
The flame, because of having ceased to speak, was quiet and erect, and now away from us was going with the gentle poet's leave. When lo, another, which behind it came, caused us to turn our eyes up toward its tip, by reason of a vague sound issuing thence. As the Sicilian bull, which bellowed first with the lament of him, and that was right, who with his file had given form to it, was wont to bellow with the voice of him who suffered in it, so that though of brass it seemed the one by whom the pain was pierced. Even so, since from the body of the flame they had nor path nor mouth, the painful words were changed at first into the latter's tongue. But when these words had travelled to the tip, and given it that vibration which the tongue, when uttered, gave to them, we heard it say,
O thou, to whom I now address my voice, and who just now didst talk in Lombard, saying, Now go thy way, for thee I urge no more, though I, perhaps, have somewhat late arrived, be not displeased to stop and speak with me. Thou seest that I am not, although I burn. If into this blind world thou only now art fallen down from that sweet Latin land, whence all my guilt I bring, pray tell me whether the Romagnols are having peace or war, for I came from the mountains 'tween Urbino and that high peak from which the Tiber springs.
While downward I was leaning, still intent, my leader touched me on my side, and said,
Speak thou, for this one an Italian is.
And I, who had my answer all prepared, began to speak without delay. O soul, that art concealed down yonder, thy Romagna is not at present, and she never was, devoid of war within her tyrants' hearts. But I left none apparent there just now. Ravenna is, as she for many years has been. Polenta's eagle so broods there, that Cervia it o'ercovers with its wings. The town which made the long resistance once, and of the French a sanguinary heap, beneath the green paws finds itself again. Verruccio's former mastiff and the new, who foully with Montagna dealt, there make, where they are wont, a gimlet of their teeth. The cities of Lamone and Santerno the little lion of the white lair rules, who changes sides from summer-time to winter. And that whose flank is by the Savio bathed lives, as it sits twixt plain and mount, a free state half, and half a tyranny. And now, I pray thee, tell me who thou art, nor harder be than others here have been, so may thy name maintain itself on earth. After the flame had roared a little while, as is its fashion, to and fro it moved its pointed tip, and then gave forth this breath.
If I believed that my reply were made to one who to the world would e'er return, this flame would stay without another quiver. But inasmuch as, if I hear the truth, none e'er returned alive from this abyss, fearless of infamy I answer thee. A man of arms I was, then courtier, trusting, since girded thus, to make amends. And certainly my trust had been confirmed, were't not for that high priest, whom ill befall, who set me at my former sins again, both how and why I'd have thee hear from me. While I was still the shape of bones and flesh my mother gave me, my performances were not a lion's, but a fox's deeds. All covert practices and hidden ways I knew, and I so carried on their arts, that to the ends of earth their fame was noised. When I perceived at last that I had reached that period of my life, when each should strike his sails and coil his ropes, what hitherto had given me pleasure, I thereat disliked. I yielded then, repenting and confessing, and that, alas, poor me, would have availed. The prince of modern Pharisees, who then hard by the Lateran had a war on hand, though not with either Saracens or Jews, for Christian were all enemies of his, and none of them had gone to conquer Acre, or been a merchant in the Sultan's land, not heeding in himself his lofty office and holy orders, or in me the cord, which Lena used to make those girt therewith, but as upon Soracte, Constantine once bade Sylvester heal his leprosy. So this one called on me, as master leech, to cure him of the fever of his pride. He asked me for advice, but I kept still, because his words were like a drunkard's words. And then he said,
Let not thy heart mistrust. I from now on absolve thee. Teach me then how I can Palestrina overthrow. To lock and unlock heaven is in my power, as thou dost know. Two therefore are the keys my predecessor held in small esteem.
His weighty words then drove me to the point at which the silent course appeared the worse. Father, I therefore said, since from the sin thou washest me, which I must now commit, a promise long drawn out, but shortly kept, will cause thy triumph on the lofty seat. Then Francis came for me, when I was dead, but one of our black cherubs said to him,
Remove him not, and do not wrong to me. Among my menials he must needs descend, because he gave the fraudulent advice, since which till now I've had him by the hair. For who repents not cannot be absolved, nor yet can one at once repent and will, the contradiction not permitting it.
O woeful me! O how I shook with fear, when, after laying hold on me, he said,
Perhaps thou didst not think me a logician.
He carried me to Minos, and the latter round his hard back 8 times entwined his tail, and when in great rage he had bitten it,
A sinner of the thievish fire is this,
he said, Hence where thou seest me, I am lost, and, thus robed, sorrowing go my way.
When he had thus completed his discourse, the flame departed from us with its grief, twisting and lashing its sharp-pointed horn. I and my leader then passed further on up o'er the crag, as far as the next arch which spans the ditch, wherein their due is paid to those who burdens win by severing bonds.
End of Inferno, Canto 27. Section 28 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 28, the 8th Circle, Fraud, the 9th Trench, Sowers of Discord.
Whoever could, even with unfettered words, tell fully of the blood and of the wounds which now I saw, though oft he told the tale, all tongues would certainly fall short of it, by reason of our speech and of our mind, whose means are small for taking in so much. If all the people should again assemble, who on Apulia's fortune-ravaged soil suffered of old from all the loss of blood shed by the Trojans, and in that long war, which with its spoil of rings made such high heaps, as Livy writes, who maketh no mistakes, with those who felt the painful force of blows received in waging war with Robert Guiscard, and those whose bones are still heaped up together at Ceperano, where a faithless liar was each Apulian, and near Tagliacozzo, where old Alardo won, though all unarmed. And if of these one showed a limb pierced through, and one a limb lopped off, 'twould all be nothing, compared with this 9th Trench's foul display. No cask indeed by loss of middle board or stave is opened as was one I saw, split from the chin to where one breaketh wind, while down between his legs his entrails hung, his pluck appeared, and that disgusting sack which maketh excrement of what is swallowed. While I on seeing him was all intent, he looked at me, and opening with his hands his breast, he said,
See, now, how I am cloven. Behold how torn apart Mahomet is. Ali, in tears, moves on ahead of me, cloven in his face from forelock down to chin. And all the others whom thou seest here, disseminators were, when still alive, of strife and schism, and hence are cloven thus. there is a devil here behind, who thus fiercely adorns, and to the sword's edge puts each member of this company anew, when we have gone around the woeful road, because ere one return in front of him, the wounds thus made have all been closed again. But who art thou that musest on the crag, perhaps to put off going to the torture, adjudged thine accusation of thyself?
Death hath not reached him yet,
replied my teacher.
nor to a torment is he led by guilt, but that complete experience may be given him, I, who am dead, must needs conduct him here from circle unto circle down through hell, and this is true, as that I speak to thee.
On hearing him, more were there than 100 who stopped there in the ditch to look at me, and who through their surprise forgot their pain.
To Fradolgino, do thou therefore say, thou that perhaps wilt shortly see the sun, if soon he would not hither follow me, to arm him so with food, lest stress of snow should give the Navarrese a victory which else would not be easily obtained.
When one foot he had raised to go away, Mahomet said these words to me, which done, upon the ground he stretched it to depart. Another then, who had his neck pierced through, his nose cut off as far as 'neath his brows, and who had one ear only, having stopped to gaze in wonder with the others there, opened before the rest his throat, whose neck vermilion was on every side, and said,
O thou that by thy guilt are not condemned, and whom up in the Latin land I've seen, unless too great resemblance play me false, call Pierre de Medicina to thy mind, if e'er thou see again the lovely plain, which from Vercelli slopes to Marcabo, and makes it known to Fano's two best men, to Messer Guido and Angiolello too, that they, unless foreseeing be in vain, down here will from their vessel be cast forth, and drowned in sacks near La Catolica, through a disloyal tyrant's treachery. Between the isles Maholica and Cyprus, Neptune ne'er saw so great a crime committed, by pirates, nay, nor by the Argolic folk. That traitor who sees only with one eye, and holds the town, from seeing which, one now is with me here, who fain would fasting be, will to a conference have them come with him. He'll then so act, that 'gainst Bokhara's wind, they'll stand in need of neither vow nor prayer.
and I to him, Point out and show to me, if news of thee thou'dst have me bear above, which is the one who had the bitter sight. Thereat he laid his hand upon the jaw of one of his companions, oped his mouth, and cried,
This is the one, for he speaks not. When exiled, he removed all doubt in Caesar, by saying that a man, when once prepared, ne'er brooked delay but to his detriment.
Oh, how dismayed that Curio seemed to me, who from his throat now had his tongue cut out, yet once had been so daring in his speech. Then one, from whom both hands had been lopped off, raising his maimed arms through the gloomy air, so that his blood befouled his face, cried out,
Mosca wilt thou remember too, who said, Alas, what's done is done, a speech which proved the seed of evil for the Tuscan race.
And death, I thereto added, to thy tribe. Then he, as woe on woe he heaped, went off as one would whom his grief had made insane. But I remained to look upon the throng, and such a thing I saw as I should be afraid to tell of without further proof, if it were not that conscience reassures me, the good companion which, beneath the breastplate of conscious purity, emboldens man. I really saw, and still I seem to see it, a trunk without a head, which moved along, as moved the others of the mournful herd, and by the hair it held the severed head, which, hanging like a lantern from its hand, was saying as it gazed at us,
Oh me!
With his own self he made himself a lamp, and two in one they were, and one in two. How this can be, he knows who so ordains. When at the bridge's very foot he was, he raised his arm above him, head and all, that he might thus bring near to us his words, which were,
Now see my painful punishment, thou that, though breathing, goest to see the dead. See whether any be as great as this. and that thou with thee mayst bear news of me. Know that Bertrand born I am, the man who gave the youthful king the ill support. Of sire and son I mutual rebels made. Ahithophel by Absalom and David with his malicious goadings did no more. Because I severed those who thus were joined, I bear my brain around with me, alas, severed from its foundation in this trunk. Retaliation thus is seen in me.
End of Inferno, Canto 28. Section 29 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 29. The Eighth Circle, Fraud. The 10th Trench, Falsifiers of Metals.
The many people and unheard-of wounds had caused my eyes to be so drunk with tears that fain they were to linger there and weep. But Virgil said,
At what art gazing still? Why is it that thine eyes still rest down there among the wretched mutilated shades? Thou didst not thus when in the other trenches. Consider then, if thou propose to count them, that this trench circles 22 miles, and that the moon is now beneath our feet. Short is the time allowed us still, and more there is to see than what thou seest here.
If thou hadst heeded, I thereat replied, the reason for my gazing there, thou wouldst perhaps have granted me a longer stay. Meantime my leader on his way was going, and I behind him moving, as I made my answer, adding, In that hollow place whereon I kept mine eyes so steadily, I think a spirit sprung from mine own blood bewails the fault so dearly paid for there. Thereat my teacher said,
Let not thy thoughts hereafter break on him. Heed other things, and there let him remain. For at the foot of that small bridge I saw him point thee out, and with his finger fiercely threaten thee. Jerry del Bello I then heard him called. So wholly wast thou then intent on him who formerly possessed Hautefort, that thou, till he departed, didst not look beyond.
Leader, said I, his death by violence, which is not yet avenged for him by any who shared the shame, made him indignant. That, as I believe, was why he went away without addressing me. He thus has caused me to pity him the more. We thus conversed till we had reached the first place on the crag, whence, had there been more light, the next ravine had to its very bottom been revealed. When we o'er Malebolge's final cloister were situated so that its lay brethren could be perceived by us, uncouth laments, which had their arrowheads with pity barbed, so pierced me through and through, that with my hands I closed mine ears. Such pain as there would be, if from the hospitals of Valdichiana, Maremma, and Sardinia, from July until September, all diseases came together in one ditch. Such was it here. And out of it there came a stench like that which out of rotting limbs is wont to come. Adown the last bank of the lengthy crag we went, as ever to the left, and then much clearer was my vision toward the bottom, wherein the servant of the Most High Lord, Justice infallible, is punishing the falsifiers she recordeth here. I do not think it were a sadder sight to see the whole race in Aegina sick, when so suffused with poison was the air, that all the animals, down to the little worm, fell dead, and when the ancient race of people, according to what poets hold for truth, out of the seed of ants restored themselves. Than now it was to see the spirits languish down in that gloomy ditch in different heaps. One on his belly lay, and others leaned against each other's shoulders, while another crawled on all fours along the dismal path. Without conversing, step by step we moved, both looking at and listening to the sick, who could not raise their bodies. Two of these I then saw sitting, and against each other leaning, just as a pan against a pan is leaned to warm, and spotted o'er with scabs from head to foot. And never have I seen a currycomb plied by a boy for whom his master waited, or by one who kept awake against his will, as each oft plied upon himself the edge of fingernails for the great rage of itching, which hath else no help, Their nails kept scraping down their scabs, as doth a knife the scales of brim, or fish of other kinds equipped with larger scales.
O thou that with thy fingers flay'st thyself,
To one of them my leader then began.
and who at times dost pincers make of them, pray tell us whether Latin any be of those in here, so may thy nails suffice thee for thy work eternally.
We both of us, whom thou beholdest here so spoiled, are Latin,
answered one who wept.
But who art thou that didst inquire of us?
My leader thereupon said,
I am one who with this living man from ledge to ledge descend, and who propose to show him hell.
Thereat the common back was broken up, and trembling each of them turned round toward me, with others who had heard him by rebound. Then my good teacher drew close up to me, and said,
Say whatsoever thou wilt to them.
Hence, since he so had wished it, I began, So may your memory never fly away from human minds in that first world of ours, but rather under many suns survive. Pray tell me who ye are, and of what people. Nor let your foul and loathsome punishment make you afraid to show yourselves to me.
I of Arezzo was, and Albero da Siena had me burned.
One then replied,
But what I died for doth not bring me here. 'Tis true I said to him, although in jest, that I knew how to raise me in the air, and he, who, curious, had but little sense, wished me to show that art to him, and only because I did not make him Daedalus, he had me burned by one who treated him as son. But to the last trench of the 10, Minos, who may not make mistakes, condemned me for the alchemy I practised in the world.
Then to the poet I, Now was there ever a people as vainglorious as the men of Siena? Surely not the French by far. Whereat the other leprous one who heard me replied to what I said.
Excepting Striga, who moderation knew in what he spent, and Nicolo, who was the first to find the costly use of cloves in gardens where such seed takes root, excepting too the company on whom Kachadashan wasted his vineyard and great forest land, while Dabalyato squandered all his sense. But so that thou mayst know who backs thee thus against the men of Siena, point thine eyes toward me, that well my face may answer thee. So shalt thou see that I'm Capocchio's shade, who meddles falsified by alchemy. And thou, if well I see thee, shouldst recall how good an ape of nature I was once.
End of Inferno, Canto 29. Section 30 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 30, the 8th Circle, Fraud, the 10th Trench, Falsifiers of Persons, Money, and Words.
When Juno, on account of Semele, was angry with the royal blood of Thebes, as several times she showed herself to be, so fiercely mad did Athamas become, that when he saw his wife approaching him, burdened by her 2 sons on either side, Spread we the nets, he cried, that I may take upon their passing lioness and cubs. And thereupon stretched out his cruel claws, and taking hold of one, Learchus named, whirled him around, and dashed him 'gainst a rock. His wife then with the other drowned herself. Again, when fortune so low down had brought the Trojans arrogant all-daring power, that with their kingdom shattered was their king, Hecuba, sad, forlorn, and captive now, when she had seen her dead Polyxena, and in her painful anguish had perceived her Polydorus lying on the beach, out of her senses barked as would a dog, so greatly had her suffering turned her mind. But ne'er did Furies, or of Thebes or Troy, reveal in any one such cruelty, in goading beasts or much less human limbs, as that which I beheld in 2 death-pale and naked shades, who ran around and bit as doth a boar when from the sty let out. One reached Capocchio, and so thrust his tusks into his neck behind, that dragging him he made his belly scrape the solid ground. The Aretine, still trembling, said to me,
That imp is Gianni Schicchi, who, enraged, goes all around ill-treating others thus.
Then, oh, I said to him, so may the other not fix his teeth in thee, be not too tired to tell me who he is, before he skips. And he to me,
That is the ancient soul of wicked Mirror, who, outside the bounds of lawful love, became her father's mistress. She came to sin with him by counterfeiting another person in herself, as did the other one who yonder goes away, that he might gain the lady of the stud, to counterfeit Buoso Donati's self, and make his will and give it legal form.
when the two furious souls on whom my eyes were fixed had passed away, I turned them round to look upon the other evil born. And one I saw who like a lute was shaped, if he had only had his groin cut off down in the region where a man is forked. The heavy dropsy which unmates the limbs in such a way with ill-digested humour, that face and paunch no longer correspond, were causing him to keep his lips apart, as doth the hectic, who because of thirst turns one lip chinward and the other up.
O ye that are, and wherefore I know not, free from all torment in this world of woe,
said he to us,
behold and pay attention to Master Adam's wretched misery. When living, I had all that I desired, and now, alas, I crave a drop of water. The little brooks which toward the Arno run, down from the Casentino's green-clad hills, and render all their channels cool and fresh, are evermore before me, nor in vain, because their image makes me drier far than this disease, which strips my face of flesh. The rigid justice which is scourging me takes from the very place in which I sinned the means to give my sighs a greater flight. There lies Ravenna, where I falsified the coin on which the Baptist form is stamped. For that I left my body burned above. But could I see the woeful soul of Guido, or Alexander, or their brother here, for Fontebranda I'd not give the sight. One is in here already, if the shades who go around here raging tell the truth. But what is that to me, whose limbs are bound? If only I were still so light of foot, that I could in 100 years advance 1 inch, I'd be already on the road, in search of him among the loathsome people. Although this trench goes round 11 miles, and is no less than half a mile across, through them am I in such a family, for they persuaded me to coin the florins, which had at least 3 carats of alloy.
Then I to him said, who are those two wretches who, smoking like wet hands in winter time, are lying there beside thee on thy right?
I found them here,
he answered,
when I reined into this ditch, since when they have not turned, nor will, I think, for all eternity. One is the woman who charged Joseph falsely, the other Sinon, Troy's deceitful Greek. Their burning fever makes them weak like this.
And one of them, who felt aggrieved perhaps at being named so darkly, smote the speaker upon his hard stiff belly with his fist. It made a sound as it had been a drum. Then Master Adam smote him with his arm, which did not seem less hard, upon his face, and said,
Though I of motion be deprived, by reason of my limbs which heavy are, I have an arm that's loose for needs like this.
Then he replied,
When going to the fire thou hadst it not so ready, but just so and more thou hadst it when thou madest coin.
He of the dropsy,
Here thou sayest true, but thou wast not so true a witness there, where thou wast questioned of the truth at Troy.
If I spoke falsely, thou didst falsify the coin.
said Sinon,
I'm for one sin here, and thou for more than any other demon.
Remember, perjurer, the horse,
replied he of the swollen paunch.
and bitter be for thee that known it is by all the world.
I'll be for thee the thirst wherewith thy tongue is cracking,
said the Greek,
and that foul water which for thine eyes thus makes thy paunch a hedge.
Thereat the coiner said,
As is its wont, thy mouth in speaking evil gapeth wide. For though I'm thirsty, and humour stuffs me out, thine is the fever and the aching head, and thou'dst not stand in need of many words, bidding thee lick the mirror of Narcissus.
On listening to them I was all intent, when,
Now be careful there,
my teacher said,
for I am not far from quarrelling with thee.
when I thus heard him speak to me in anger, such was the shame wherewith I turned to him, that through my memory it is circling still. And such is he who dreameth of his harm, and dreaming wishes that he dreamt, and thus, as if it were not, longs for that which is. Such I became, who, impotent to speak, would fain excuse myself, and all the while was doing so, but did not think I was.
Less shame would wash away a greater fault than thine hath been.
My teacher said to me,
Therefore unburden thee of all thy sadness, and count on me as ever at thy side, if it again should chance that fortune find thee where folk in such a wrangle are engaged. For vulgar is the wish to hear such things.
End of Inferno, Canto 30. Section 31 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 31. The Edge of the Central Well. The Giants.
One and the selfsame tongue first wounded me, so that it coloured both my cheeks, and then supplied me with the medicine required. Achilles and his father's lance, I hear, was likewise wont to be the source of, first, a sad, and after of a grateful gift. We turned our backs upon the woeful vale over the bank which girds it round about, and passed across without a single word. Here less than night it was, and less than day, so that my sight advanced not far, but here I heard a horn give forth so loud a sound that it had rendered any thunder faint. This led mine eyes, as counter to its path they followed, wholly to a single place. After the woeful rout, when Charlemagne the holy army of his knights had lost, Roland blew not so terrible a blast. I had not kept my head turned toward it long, when many lofty towers I seemed to see. I therefore, Teacher, say what town is this?
Since from the darkness from too far away thou peerest,
he replied,
it comes about that afterward thou errest in conceiving. If yonder thou attain, thou'lt clearly see how from far away one's senses are deceived. Hence onward urge thyself a little more.
Thereat he took my hand with kindly care, and said to me,
Ere further on we go, so that the fact may seem less strange to thee, know then that towers they are not, but giants, and all of them are standing in the well around the bank, each from his navel down.
As, when a fog is thinning off, one's gaze little by little giveth shape to that, which, since it packs the air, the mist conceals. Even so, as through the dense dark air I pierced, and nearer drew and nearer to the brink, error in me took flight, and fear increased. For, as upon its round enclosing walls Monteregione crowds itself with towers, thus o'er the margin which surrounds the well with one half of their bodies towered up those frightful giants, whom, when from the sky he thunders, Jupiter is threatening still. Already now was I distinguishing the face of one, his shoulders and his breast, most of his paunch, and down his sides both arms. When nature ceased from making animals like these, and took such executioners from Mars, she certainly did very well. And even if she of elephants and whales repent her not, whoever subtly looks holds her therein the more discreet and just. For where the reasoning faculty is joined to evil will, equipped with power to act, people can make against it no defence. His face appeared to me as long and big as is at Rome the pine cone of St. Peter's, and in proportion to it were his other bones, so that the bank, which from his middle down an apron was, showed quite so much of him above it, that of reaching to his hair 3 Frisians would have made a useless boast. For I full 30 spans of him perceived, down from the place at which one buckles cloaks.
Ruffle mea mec zarpi et almi.
The frightful mouth, to which no sweeter psalms were fitting, thereupon began to cry. Then toward him cried my leader,
Foolish soul, keep to thy horn, and vent thyself therewith, when wrath or other passion seizes thee. Search at thy neck, and thou wilt find the cord which holds it tight, O spirit of confusion, and see it lying on thy mighty breast.
To me then,
Self-accused he stands, for this is Nimrod, to whose evil thought is due that more than one tongue in the world is spoken. Let us leave him alone, nor talk in vain, for such is every tongue to him as his to others is, for that is known to none.
Then turning to the left we travelled on much further, and within a crossbow's shot we found the next one far more large and fierce. What was the master's power who girded him I cannot say, but this one had in front his left arm, and behind his back his right, tied by a chain, which downward from his neck held him so bound, that on the uncovered part it wound around as far as the 5th coil. My leader said to me,
Gainst Jove most high this proud soul wished to test his strength, and hence hath this reward. Ephialtes is his name. His haughty undertaking he attempted what time the giants caused the gods to fear. The arms he plied he moveth now no more.
And I to him, if possible it be, I'd gladly have these eyes of mine enjoy experience of the measureless Briareus. Then he replied,
Antis thou'lt behold not far from here, who speaks, and, since unbound, can set us at the bottom of all sin. He is much further on, whom thou wouldst see, and bound he is, and shaped like this one, save that more ferocious in his looks he seems.
There never was an earthquake strong enough to shake a tower with so much violence as Ephialtes quickly shook at this. Then more than ever yet did I fear death, nor for it was there need of more than fear, had it not been that I perceived his bonds. We thereupon proceeded further still, and to Antaeus came, who full 5 ells beside his head protruded from the pit.
O thou that in the valley fortune blessed, which once caused Scipio to inherit glory, when with his followers Hannibal took flight, once tookst 1,000 lions as thy prey, and who, hadst thou been at thy brethren's war on high, it seems that it is still believed the sons of earth had been the victors there. Pray set us down below, nor let disdain affect thee where the cold locks up Cocytus. Make us not go to Titius or to Typhius. This man can give what most is longed for here. Stoop then, nor twist thy muzzle. He can still give fame to thee on earth, since he is living and still looks forward to long life, if grace recall him not untimely to itself.
The teacher thus. Then he in haste stretched out the hands, whose mighty pressure Hercules once felt, and took my leader. Virgil then, on feeling himself taken, said to me,
Come here, that I may take thee up.
And then so did, that he and I one bundle were. Such as the Carisenda seems, when viewed beneath its leaning side, whene'er a cloud sails o'er it so, that opposite it hangs. Such did Antaeus seem to me, who watched to see him stoop, and such a moment 'twas, that I had gladly gone another road. But lightly at the bottom which devours Judas and Lucifer, he set us down, nor, thus bent over, did he linger there, but raised himself, as on a ship a mast.
End of Inferno, Canto 31. Section 32 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 32. The Ninth Circle, Treachery, Cocytus, Traitors to their relatives and to their country.
If I had rhymes that were as harsh and hoarse as would be fitting for the dismal hole, on which lean all the other circling rocks, I'd squeeze the juice of my conception out more fully. But because I have them not without fear do I resolve to speak, for to describe the bottom of the universe is not an enterprise wherewith to jest, nor for a tongue that says mamma and dad. Let then those ladies give my verse their aid, who helped Amphion build the walls of Thebes, that from the facts the telling differ not. O rabble, that ill-born beyond all people, are in a place to speak of which is hard, far better had ye here been sheep or goats. When we were down within the gloomy well, beneath the giant's feet, though lower far, and I still gazing at its lofty wall, I heard one say to me,
Look where thou walkest, and see that with thy feet thou trample not the heads of us two wretched, weary brothers.
Thereat I turned around, and saw before me, and 'neath my feet, a lake which, being frozen, seemed to be made of glass and not of water. The Danube up in Austria never made so thick a veil in winter for its course, nor yonder 'neath the cold sky did the dawn, as what was here. For even if Tambernic had fallen on it, or had Pietrapana, it had not cracked even at its very edge. And as a frog remains, to do its croaking, with muzzle out of water, in the season when oft the peasant dreams that she is gleaning, even so, as far as where one's shame is shown, the woeful shades were livid in the ice, as to the notes of storks they set their teeth. Each kept his face turned downward, from his mouth the cold, and from his eyes his saddened heart provides itself a witness in their midst. When I had gazed around a while, I looked down at my feet, and two I saw with heads so close together that their hair was mixed. Ye that are pressing thus your breasts together, say who ye are, said I. They bent their necks, and when their faces had been raised toward me, their eyes, moist only inwardly before, gushed upward through the lids, whereat the cold, binding the tears between them, closed them up. A clamp ne'er bound so tightly board to board, whereat, so great the anger mastering them, like two he-goats they butted one another. And one who had by reason of the cold lost both his ears, with face still lowered, said,
Why dost thou mirror thee so much on us? If thou wouldst know who those two near thee are, the valley from which thy Bisenzio flows belonged to their sire Albert, and to them they issued from one body, and thou canst search through all Caina, but thou it never find a shade more worthy to be fixed in ice. Not he, whose breasts and shadow broken were by one same blow at Arthur's hand, nor yet Focaccia, nor this fellow here, whose head so blocks me that I cannot see beyond, and who was Sasol Mascarione called. Who he was, thou, if Tuscan, now know'st well, and that thou put me to no further speech. Know then that I was Camaccione de' Pazzi, and that, to excuse me, I await Colleen.
Thereafter I beheld 1,000 faces made dog-like by the cold. Hence frozen ponds cause me to shudder now, and always will. And now, while toward that centre we were moving, whereto all heavy objects gravitate, and I was trembling in the eternal cold. I know not whether it were will or fate or chance, but as I walked among the heads, hard in the face of one I struck my foot. Weeping he scolded,
Wherefore dost thou smite me? Unless thou comest to increase the vengeance for Monteperti, why dost thou molest me?
And I said, Teacher, wait now for me here, that I through him may issue from a doubt. Then at thy pleasure shalt thou hurry me. My leader stopped, and I to him, who still was savagely blaspheming, said, What sort of man art thou, that scoldest people so?
Now who art thou, that ghost?
He replied,
Through Antenora smiting cheeks so roughly that it would be too much wert thou alive.
I am alive, and it may profit thee, was my reply, for me to place thy name, if fame thou ask, among my other notes. And he,
I crave the contrary. Away with thee, and bother me no more. For ill dost thou know how to flatter in this bog.
Thereat I seized him by the nape, and said, It needs must be that thou reveal thy name, or that no hair remain upon thee here. Then he to me,
Though thou pull out my hair, I'll neither say nor show thee who I am, fall thou upon my head 1,000 times.
I had his hair wrapped round my hand already, and more than one shock had I plucked from him, while he was barking, with his eyes turned down. When here another cried,
What ails thee, Bowker? Is making noise with jawbones not enough unless thou bark? What devil touches thee?
Henceforth, said I would not have thee speak, perfidious traitor, for true news of thee I'll carry with me to thy lasting shame.
But be gone and tell where'er thou wilt.
He answered,
But be not silent if thou issue hence, of him who had now just his tongue so ready. He here bewails the money of the French. Him of Duera thou canst say, I saw where cold the days are for the sinful folk. And if thou shouldst be asked who else was there, thou hast beside thee him of Beccaria, who had his gorget cut in two by Florence. Gianni de Soldanier is further on, I think, with Ganelon and Tebaldello, who while its people slept unlocked Faenza.
From him we had departed now, when two I saw, so frozen in a single hole, that one man's head served as the other's cap. And as because of hunger bread is eaten, even so the upper on the other set his teeth, where to the nape the brain is joined. Nor otherwise did Tydeus gnaw the temples of Menalippus out of spite, than this one was gnawing at the skull and other parts. O thou that showest by a sign so beastly hatred toward him thou eatest, tell me why, said I to him, on this express condition, that shouldst thou rightfully of him complain, I, knowing who ye are, and that one's sin, may quit thee for it in the world above, if that wherewith I speak be not dried up.
End of Inferno, Canto 32. Section 33 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 33. The Ninth Circle, Treachery, Cocytus, Traitors to their country and to their guests.
From his grim meal that sinner raised his mouth, and wiped it on the hair of that same head which he had spoiled behind. He then began,
Thou wouldst that I renew a hopeless grief, the thought of which already breaks my heart before I speak of it. But if my words are likely to be seeds, and bear the fruit of infamy upon the traitor whom I gnaw, speaking and weeping shalt thou see together. I know not who thou art, nor by what means thou art come down here, but when I hear thee speak, thou truly seemst to me a Florentine. Know then that I Count Ugolino was, and this man here Ruggieri, the Archbishop. And now I'll tell thee why I'm thus his neighbour. That, as the outcome of his evil thoughts, I, trusting him, was seized, and afterwards was put to death, there is no need to say. But that which thou canst not have heard, that is, how cruel was my death, thou now shalt hear. And whether he have wronged me thou shalt know. A narrow slit within the malting tower, which bears because of me the name of Hunger, and in whose walls still others must be locked, had through its opening shown me many a moon already when I had the evil dream which rent apart the curtain of the future. This one therein a lord and huntsman seemed, chasing the wolf and wolfings towards the mount, which hinders Pisans from beholding Luca, with bitches lean and eager and well trained. For he had set before him in his van Gualandi with Sismondi and Lanfranchi. After a little run, both father and son seemed weary to me. Then methought I saw their flanks torn open by sharp-pointed fangs. When, just before the morning, I awoke, I heard my children who were with me there sob in their sleep and ask me for their bread. Cruel indeed thou art, if thinking what my heart forebode, thou grievest not already. And if thou weepest not, at what art wont to weep? Awake they were, and now the hour was drawing nigh when food was brought to us. Hence each by reason of his dream was worried. And then I heard the dread tower's lower door nailed up, whereat, without a word, I looked my children in the face. I did not weep, so like a stone had I become within. They wept, and my poor little Anselm said,
Father, thou lookest so. What aileth thee?
But still I did not weep, nor did I answer through all that day or through the following night, till on the world another sun had dawned. Then when a little beam had made its way into our woeful prison, and I perceived by their 4 faces how I looked myself, I bit in anguish both my hands. And they, thinking it done because I craved to eat, immediately stood up and said to me,
Father, much less shall we be pained, if us thou eat. Thou with this wretched flesh did clothe us. Do thou then strip it from us now.
Thereat, to sadden them no more, I calmed myself. Through that day and the next we all kept mute. Ah, why, hard earth, didst thou not open up? Then Gaddo, when the 4th day we had reached, stretched himself out at length before my feet, and said,
My father, why dost thou not help me?
And there he died. And even as thou seest me, between the 5th day and the 6th, I saw the 3 fall one by one. And, blind already, I gave myself to groping over each, and 2 days called them after they were dead. Then fasting proved more powerful than pain.
When he had spoken thus, with eyes awry, he seized again the wretched skull, with teeth which for the bone were strong as are a dog's. Ah, Pisa, foul reproach of those that dwell in that fair country where the sea is heard! Since slow thy neighbours are to punish thee, then let Caprara and Gorgona move, and make a hedge across the Arno's mouth, that every person in thee may be drowned. For though Count Ugolino had the name of traitor to thee in thy castle towns, thou shouldst not thus have crucified his sons. Their youthful age had made, thou modern Thebes, Brigata and Uguccione innocent, and the other 2 my canto names above. Further along we went, to where the ice roughly enswathes another class of people, not downward turned, but wholly on their backs. Weeping itself allows not weeping there, and tears, which find a barrier in their eyes, turn back, to cause their suffering to increase, because the first ones form a solid block, and thus, like crystal visors, wholly fill the hollow cup beneath the brow. And though, as in a callous spot, because of cold, all feeling had departed from my face, it seemed to me that now I felt some wind. Whence I to him, My teacher, who moves this? Is not all moving air quenched here below? And he,
Ere long shalt thou be, where thine eyes, seeing the cause which raineth down the blast, will make an answer to thee as to this.
one of the wretches of the icy crust, called out to us thereat.
O souls, so cruel, that unto you the last place is assigned, remove for me the hard veils on my face, that I may somewhat vent the pain that fills my heart, before the tears freeze up again.
Whence I to him, If thou wouldst have me help thee, say who thou art, and should I not relieve thee, may I needs reach the bottom of the ice. Then he,
I Frate Alberigo am, he of the evil garden's fruit, who here for every fig I gave get back a date.
Then, oh, said I, art thou already dead? And he to me replied,
I have no knowledge how in the world above my body fares. Such is the privilege of this Ptolemaea, that frequently a soul falls into it, ere Arthropos have caused it to move on. But that thou scrape more gladly from my face these glassy tears, know then that just as soon as any soul betrays, as I betrayed, its body is taken from it by a demon, who then takes charge of it, until its time be all revolved. Into a well like this it rushes headlong down, and so perhaps the body of the shade that winters here behind me is still visible above. This thou shouldst know, if just come down, for he Ser Brancadoria is, and many years have now gone by since he was thus shut up.
I think, said I, that thou deceivest me, for Brancadoria is not dead as yet, but eats and drinks and sleeps and dons his clothes.
Above us, in the Malebranca's ditch,
he said,
there where the sticky pitch is boiling, not yet had Michael Zance's soul arrived, when in his stead this fellow left behind a devil in his body, as did also one of his kinsmen, who with him performed the treachery. But stretch thy hand here now, and open mine eyes.
And yet I oped them not, for rudeness shown to him was courtesy. Ah, Genoese, ye men estranged from all morality, and full of every vice, why from the earth are ye not wholly driven? For with the meanest spirit of Romagna I found one such of you, that for his deeds in soul he bathes already in Cocytus, and seems in body still alive above.
End of Inferno, Canto 33. Section 34 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 34. The Ninth Circle. Treachery. Cocytus. Traitors to their benefactors. Lucifer.
The banners of the King of Hell advance toward us. Now, therefore, look ahead of thee,
my teacher said,
and see if thou perceive him.
As when a heavy fog is breathed abroad, or when at night our hemisphere grows dark, a windmill looks when seen from far away. Even such a structure seemed I now to see. Then for the wind I shrank behind my leader, for other shelter was there none. I now, and 'tis with fear I put it into verse, was where the shades were wholly covered up, and visible as is a straw in glass. Some lying are, and some are standing up, one on his head, the other on his soles. One, like a bow, bends toward his feet his face. When we had gone so far ahead, that now it pleased my teacher to reveal to me the creature who once seemed so beautiful, he stepped from where he was in front of me, stopped me, and said,
Lo this, and lo the place where thou must arm thyself with fortitude.
How frozen and how weak I then became, ask thou not, reader, for I write it not, because all speech would be of small avail. I did not die, nor yet remained alive. Think for thyself now, hast thou any wit, what I became, of both of these deprived. The emperor of the realm of woe stood forth out of the ice from midway up his breast. And I compare more closely with a giant than merely with his arms the giants do. Consider now how great that whole must be, that with such parts as these may be compared. If once as beautiful as ugly now, he still raised up his brows against his Maker, justly doth every woe proceed from him. Oh, what a marvel it appeared to me, when I beheld 3 faces to his head. One was in front of us, and that was red. The other 2 were to the latter joined right o'er the middle of each shoulder blade, and met each other where he had his crest. That on the right 'twixt white and yellow seemed. The left one such to look at, as are those who come from there where valeward flows the Nile. Under each face 2 mighty wings stretched out, of size proportioned to so huge a bird. Sails of the sea I never saw so large. They had no feathers, but were like a bat's in fashion. These he flapped in such a way that 3 winds issued forth from him. Thereby Cocytus was completely frozen up. With 6 eyes he was weeping, and his tears and bloody slaver trickled o'er 3 chins. In each mouth, as a heckle would have done, a sinner he was crushing with his teeth, and thus was causing pain to 3 of them. To him who was in front of us the biting was nothing to the clawing, for at times his back remained completely stripped of skin.
That soul up there which hath the greatest pain, Judas Iscariot is,
my teacher said,
who hath his head within and plies his legs without. Of the other 2, whose heads are down, Brutus is he who from the black snout hangs. See how he writhes, and utters not a word. Cassius the other is, who so big-limbed appears. But night is coming up again, and now 'tis time to leave, for we've seen all.
Then, as it pleased him, I embraced his neck, and he availed himself of time and place, and when the wings were opened wide enough, he firmly grasped the shaggy flanks, and then from tuft to tuft he afterward descended between the matted hair and frozen crusts. When we were come to where the thigh turns round, just at the thick part of the hips, my leader with tiring effort and with stress of breath turned his head round to where his legs had been, and seized the hair as one would who ascends. Hence I thought we were going back to hell.
Hold fast to me, for by such stairs as these,
panting like one worn out, my teacher said,
must such great wickedness be left behind.
Then through an opening in the rock he issued, and after seating me upon its edge, over toward me advanced his cautious step. Raising mine eyes, I thought that I should still see Lucifer the same as when I left him. But I beheld him with his legs held up, and thereupon, if I became perplexed, let those dull people think, who do not see what kind of point that was which I had passed.
Stand up,
my teacher said,
upon thy feet. The way is long and difficult the road, and now to Middle Tiers the sun returns.
It was no palace hallway where we were, but just a natural passage underground, which had a wretched floor and lack of light. Before I tear myself from this abyss, teacher, said I on rising, talk to me a little, and correct my wrong ideas. Where is the ice? And how is this one fixed thus upside down? And in so short a time how hath the sun from evening crossed to morn? Then he to me,
Thou thinkest thou art still beyond the centre where I seized the hair of that bad worm who perforates the world. While I was going down, thou wast beyond it, but when I turned, thou then didst pass the point to which all weights are drawn on every side. Thou now art come beneath the hemisphere opposed to that the great dry land o'ercovers, and neath whose zenith was destroyed the man who without sinfulness was born and died. Thy feet thou hast upon the little sphere which forms the other surface of Giudecca. 'Tis morning here, whenever evening there, and he who made our ladder with his hair is still fixed fast, even as he was before. He fell on this side out of heaven, whereat the land, which hitherto was spread out here, through fear of him made of the sea a veil, and came into our hemisphere. Perhaps to flee from him, what is on this side seen left the place empty here, and upward rushed.
There is a place down there, as far removed from Beelzebub as e'er his tomb extends, not known by sight, but by a brooklet's sound, which flows down through a hole there in the rock, gnawed in it by the water's spiral course, which slightly slopes. My leader then, and I, in order to regain the world of light, entered upon that dark and hidden path, and without caring for repose went up, he going on ahead, and I behind, till through a rounded opening I beheld some of the lovely things the sky contains. Thence we came out, and saw again the stars.
End of Inferno, Canto 34.
Hi, I'm back. So that was the end of Inferno 34. So that was all of Inferno we've listened to so far. And we have Purgatorio. So that would be Purgatory. There are 1, 2, 33 for Purgatory, and 1, 2, 33 for Paradiso. Paradisio? Paradise. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed today. I managed to get Miss Dolly's, oh boys, where did my window go? There it went. Miss Dolly's legs and a bit of her skirt done. So what I'm going to do is just finish off her skirt today. And then when I see you next time, we'll continue on with her shirt and top and kind of go from there. And then hopefully we'll be able to join our arms on at that point. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna try to do most of the doll on camera. So I'm just gonna finish the skirt off because I think I was just going to finish this row that I started, and then that would be good for the skirt. Maybe one more. I'm not sure. I'll have to see. See? Here we go. So the skirt's just a little bit longer. So I'm thinking the skirt will be good, like there. But I might put on another one. Either way, I'll finish the skirt off camera, and then next time we'll listen to Purgatory 1 to 1 to 6. Okay. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you like this little book club. I hope you have a wonderful day and have a great night. Bye.